What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to Basementside Chats. My name is Deeg. I'm here coming at you from the Goldshire Inn, or at least it should be if this is all working correctly on the stream. With my friend Kargoz. Hi, Kargoz. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really good, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to have a fun time, like you said, just chatting, talking WoW.
Yeah, gonna be fun, man. Why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to those who might not be familiar with who you are and what you
do? Sounds good. My name is Kargoz. I been playing WoW pretty much my whole life, man, since I was 14 or something. You know, I'm 29 now, so it came out in 2004. I'm proud of myself. I've never said that I quit WoW. You know, you always had times and friends where they'd be like, "Yo, I'm quitting WoW." I always had the foresight to know that I'm too much of a degenerate to ever fully kick the bug. So I always would, take hiatuses from WoW and come back. And I've just kind of played on and off throughout all the years, every expansion, even BFA. But my main love when it comes to World of Warcraft is vanilla WoW. And that's not to say that it's the expansion that I had necessarily the most fun in, just because there were later expansions like even TBC and Lich King where I was playing at a higher level and playing with my real life friends. But there's just something so special about vanilla WoW. And I kind of really appreciated vanilla WoW so much more come like the nostalgia era when it started to come back around Worlds of Draenor, and like kind of to get a fresh look with much more developed faculties going back into vanilla WoW, looking at it and just getting to appreciate how much love went into the world. But anyway, I have a YouTube channel, Twitch stream. I've made some guides in the past, but I'm just love WoW, man. Love the community, and that's pretty much it.
Word, man. I think more than almost any other game, World of Warcraft is a game that people really kind of live in and identify with over the years. And it seems like you're really, like, you are one of the most, the sense that I get when I look at your content, like you're doing this awesome hardcore run stuff now. You've done lots of instructional videos in the past. You have Good Morning Azeroth, your podcast that you do with Melderon, Def Camp, and Dunedain and those guys. All great stuff. But what bleeds through for me that's so clear is you love this world. And it sounds like that love started for you at a young age, and it's been through you into your adult life.
Yeah, it's true, man. And it's, the thing that I used to be embarrassed about too for a while, because you always want to play at a high level, have a chip on your shoulder, be respected, get the admiration of all your peers, all this. But the thing that I've come to just appreciate and embrace now is I always really like the leveling process in this game for whatever reason. There would be expansions where it would come out and then I would just level the cap and not really play that much after, and I just the beautiful purple XP that you get going out in the world, playing with the music and the ambience on. For me, it's almost very therapeutic. And it's something that I just like to do, chill, level, doing stuff like that. So that's like the main value add this game has added to me in my life, just the world and the leveling process. And it's always been what I've been drawn most to.
Sure. So you talk about like wanting to have those kinds of almost like social badges of being like, I'm a raider, I'm a high end dude. Like I really push the barriers, but you've come back to recognize just how important and how meaningful the experience of and leveling in, at least in WoW Vanilla and WoW Classic, is a much different affair than leveling in WoW Retail and even most modern MMO games that have leveling processes, where it feels like the game is in a hurry to get you to the end game so you can do the content you're supposed to be doing. But you've taken a step back from that and said, no, I'm not going to worry about grinding. Are you even raiding at all in Classic right now?
No, not anymore. I mean, I assume you probably played a bunch of the different iterations of the expansion. It's the type of thing that you initially have that chip on your shoulder. You want to prove yourself, show that you're a good player and all this. Right. But once you've been through that life cycle a couple times and you've raided and you've tried hard at PvP in a couple times and you've been through that whole, cycle of chasing the carrot on a stick, after, you find yourself after you raid for months and months with all this purple gear, but you're not really doing anything much with it. You're getting all of it, but what is that really translating to you? And I don't know if you have these moments too, but I think there's a lot of parallels in WoW, like how you act in WoW and what you're doing in WoW, and lessons to be learned from WoW that kind of translate into real life
Mhm.
sometimes too. Because I do also feel like in real life I've come back to the simple things in real life. Like I should really try to appreciate each day, just being alive. Being able to have a nice meal and a soda and just appreciating the simple things. And I almost feel like that translates a little bit in the game. With what I'm doing. When you're a little kid, you think you're going to be a big mover and shaker of the world. Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, drive a Lambo, tons of beautiful women around you, all this. Some people are still pursuing that, but I don't know, man. Maybe
Yeah,
it's just settling or what. I'm married now. I'm happy now. I don't just, yeah.
I respect it. I really like what you said about finding lessons in WoW that can also be lessons to you outside of WoW in life. I feel like I really relate to that too. You described how you realized that how you kind of brought it back to what was actually important to you, the leveling experience. I'm definitely going to get to that in a sec, but before I do, I want to reflect on my own experience coming back to Classic too, just for a moment. It'll help you get to know me a little
Hmm.
bit better too.
For sure. No, I'd love to. I'd love to hear it, man.
Sure. So I was actually in college when WoW was in beta. So when WoW came out for me, it was about um, playing with a bunch of my friends who played shooter games at the time on PC, and the only thing I knew how to do was just hit it hard. I went into raiding. I actually led a raiding guild through Molten Core and Blackwing Lair that I'm sure took years off of my life. and um, and then I kept going. I would play the game for a few months, get burned out, and then come back after a few months. Like what you say about taking a hiatus, because for me, the day in day out of rating never really lasted. But I always had the draw to come back to be in the world, and especially when an expansion came out. So I came back for Burning Crusade, I came back for Wrath, and then around the time Ulduar came out, my life kind of moved in a different direction, and I was able to leave it behind. And that's the last time I played retail. But then when Classic was announced, I was like, oh hell yeah, like I gotta do this. Um, One of the things that I was really curious about after it came out, this fascinating like you think you do but you don't kind of narrative that's being was tossed around by the community. And at the time I speculated about what not just how Classic would be received by both people who have been hiding away in private servers to get their fix, and also people who have been, admiring WoW from afar to be like, it's not really my game anymore. It's kind of the way I felt. Um, and or any other many thousands of ways you may have felt about the direction the game had gone. And feeling like, for me, wondering, is this not only what does this mean for WoW, but what does this mean for the greater world of video games? And is there a recognition of something of the core values from WoW Vanilla that the people are going to start picking up again and realizing that I had been thinking about for years? To be like, oh man, why don't games do this anymore? Um, and there are a bunch of tangents I can go down, but I wonder if before, so I jumped in and played WoW Classic for 2 months when it released. I quit like
Hmm.
the weekend the PvP system came out, which for me was perfect. It was just enough time for me to hit 60 with a friend. The duo leveling experience,
Oh, you do a
amazing.
level at the 60? That's awesome,
Oh
man.
yeah, I mean we weren't
Yeah.
like complementary. Like I was a warrior and he was a mage, but
Yeah.
we made it work.
You still do some fun stuff. You can poly you back to full and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny too because he was always getting me into trouble. We were hitting the Badlands. We were playing Alliance, which is not my preference, but whatever. And there was a troll hunter that was kiting that drake from the eastern side of the zone over towards the
Yeah,
town.
Teramis. Yeah.
Yeah, to try to get the guards. Yeah, Tamaris, that was his name is. Yeah, sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
Teramis. Yeah.
And my my mage friend with a twinkle in his eye looks at it and can only think of one thing to do. And of course, he's got to screw with the guy, and so he just blinks. He runs up to him, frost novas him, blinks away, and that's the end of the troll. And I
That's
don't know.
great, man.
I'm a little bit more of like a good guy when those interactions. I feel like I don't like to just cause people misery, but
Yeah.
we had a lot of interactions like that. You know, the humanity in you, whatever that looks like, comes out.
It does. It really does. It really does, man. And actually, just to chime in on that,
Yeah.
this is like, so it's kind of how I am in real life too. So, you know, I find great relief in what we're doing right now with hardcore. I feel like we basically unsubscribed from the rat race to a certain extent. You're no longer
Yeah.
caring about how strong your parses are, how good your gear is, if you can, 1v1 X, Y, or Z, if you can hold around on the open world. You kind of just unsubscribed from all of it. And even in real life, a fixation on money, wealth, success, clout, all that has kind of gone away a bit for me. But
Hmm.
I would be lying to say that it's still not within me though. Like, I still have that, and but the thing is, if I'm going to try to, compete and and try to be the very best or whatever, you have to go on this like super savage wavelength, And I remember back when the game first came out, I thought I was going to be ranked 14. I was going to be the best that I could be. And I
Yeah.
came in and it was like so savage. Like our server turned into like the hood. That's what I was calling it. It was going around Scarum. I'm out there multi-boxing with a mage right next to me. I'm I'm an SL Warlock, Blackrock Mountain, just out there just trying to just ruin kids' days as much as possible to try to like be as strong as possible and do all that. But
Mm,
I wasn't having that much fun at the
mm.
time. And I'm always looking over my shoulder because I'm streaming and I'm always scared somebody's going to try to gank me or team up on me with a couple people. So I'm doing everything I can. I'm always rolling deep. I'm always rolling around,
Yeah.
4 or 5, people multi-boxing, had the mage following behind me. And I just compare how much fun I'm having with the game right now versus how it was back then on my
Yeah.
Warlock on Scarum, and I'm just having way more fun now. It just feels way more wholesome. We have a community, have friends, and it feels like we're kind of doing a good thing, bringing people together as opposed to trying to be on that wavelength. So for me, I'm kind of an extremist. I'm sure some people can relate. You're either kind of on or off. You're either here or there. I wish it's one thing I struggle in my life with a lot, just trying to find a way to balance, both sides of the force. But
Sure. Sure.
I don't know, man. I'm happy with how things are going right now.
I love it. No, I think like, and this is just a like a personal life lesson for me too that I'm relating. I think, which is like, there's this vision that I had when as I was growing up about what a successful person looks like. You know, it's patterned on adults you respect, people you see in the media, your parents, whatever, older siblings if you got them. Um, and then, but you have to forge your own path once you get there. And it sounds like you did a good job of recognizing that the what was accepted by the society around you of WoW players was not really for you. And it's a very brave thing to take a step out of that zeitgeist and be like, I'm going to do my own thing. And it's even
Mhm.
braver to be like, I'm going to share it with the world. And it's even braver to be like, I'm going to try to lead a community for that. I salute you, dude. I like you popped up on my radar a while ago for Good Morning Azeroth and all the other great content you did. I of course dove into your warrior stuff as I was leveling my warrior up. Um, but seeing you do the classic stuff really hits me right in the heart in a good way. And not just for the amount of effort you're doing, but I have such respect for community made games and community made modes in games.
Mhm.
You want to talk for a minute about what goes into a hardcore run, just for folks maybe aren't familiar with it? Like, what
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just going back to the genesis of all of it, it started off very, you know, short-sighted. I didn't have some big plan or vision for this. It actually was a late night, and I was bored, and I wanted to stream, and I was thinking, man, what am I going to stream right now?
Yeah.
Maybe I should try and do some special stream content, right? Because I think people appreciate that if they're watching a stream, it feels like the content is for them, and like you're putting the viewer first. So I was like, let me try this Iron Man challenge. Always heard about this Iron Man challenge, but I never researched it and tried to find out every single rule. So I just rolled with one life, thinking that was Iron Man. It's like, all right, let me just
Mhm.
do this. And then we started to get popular, and I pretty much almost immediately realized once we were doing the Iron Man, wow, this changes everything. How come? Like I just kept thinking to myself, why are people are sleeping on this? This is changing way more than I thought it was going to change. I thought it was
Mhm.
just going to be a simple play the game normally, but you have one life. If you're truly trying to play with one life, every action, every talent point, every ability, every spell, every decision, every item, everything is viewed in a different light of mortality, pretty much. And I find, first of all, another thing too that hit me right away was like, man, this is really immersive when you have one life and you're playing an MMO. Usually, like the consequences of dying is you just respawn in 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Um, and that also leads to just kind of exploiting the world and stuff, like just death skipping around and doing all this kinds of crazy
Yeah.
shenanigans. Um, Interacting with the world with one life, it puts the fear back in your belly, back, respecting the open world. Like you
Mhm.
care about the mobs again, you care about their power level again, and you really have to kind of apply yourself and play with a certain level of finesse and respect, or else you're just going to die and throw it all away and all your slash blade is gone. So it was kind of this thing that just unfolded organically in front of my eyes. And then the Iron Man people came in and they're like, ah, yo, you can't be calling it Iron Man. Iron Man's been around forever. Iron Man can only use white items. You cannot use any talents, no potions. That's Iron Man. What you're doing is not Iron Man.
Oh my
And
god.
so I was like, okay, okay, okay. I mean, they came at me pretty respectfully, but they came at me pretty strong. Like, and I was like, all right, all
No
right.
talents?
So
Only white gear?
no talent. And
Yikes.
so I talked back to them. I'm like, well, playing with no talents doesn't even make sense, man. Like in a classic environment, like because I feel like part of the appeal of this challenge is it has to be kind of fun to watch, fun to
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
And in order for it to be fun to watch, fun to play, it kind of just has to feel like you're playing the game, but playing the game well. If you're
Yeah.
playing with no talents, you're playing a different game. Like you just
Also
to me
make
that was so bizarre. So actually, it was
yeah.
originally the person who like invented Iron Man and runs this challenge site hit me up and was saying, and he was actually respectful about it. He was saying, "Look, man, we've been around for a long time. I highly recommend that you just call it a different game mode because." We have big plans for Iron Man. This is still very much something that we're doing. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, 100%, man. I understand. So we came up with hardcore,
Mhm.
and that was pretty much just taking a page out of Diablo because Diablo has hardcore.
Sure.
They've had it forever, right? So and also me personally, I love the way Diablo looks. The art style of Diablo, it's so dark and
It's
edgy
very
and
distinct.
gritty and just like grimy and real. And there's no cutesy this, cutesy that. Like everybody's it's just like a
Mhm.
dead ass serious world like Witcher kind of, right? So
Mhm.
everything about Diablo was awesome. And I started thinking about, man, I always wish WoW was a little bit darker and less
Yeah.
WoW has a sense of humor, which I do appreciate. I mean, that's part of it. Like, there's no denying it. There's the gnomes and the self-deprecating aspect. That's always going to be part of Warcraft. But
Yeah.
anyway, we started to go down this rabbit hole of exploring a new game mode where um, the world was our oyster and we could define any rule set. So I'm streaming and the chat has all these great ideas. I originally, when I was doing hardcore, was playing with auction house because I love the auction house. I love being able to
Mm.
twink out my characters, buy nice swords, blue swords, go out there, slap things. And they're like, the auction house, it's taken a huge portion of the game out. You got to play with no auction house, and I was resistant to that at first, but then the next huge piece of hardcore fell into place, which is the solo self-found gear rule. Because this is
Oh.
what we always say: the one life brings him in, the solo self-found keeps him. Right. So the
Mm.
one life is like, ooh, being mortal in an MMO. All right, bet. Like that sounds really great. But the solo self-found, once the people are in the community and playing, you ask them what percentage of the experience is solo self-found. Most people are like 80%. That's the majority of the reason to play hardcore for them. Because and solo self-found, if anybody doesn't know what that is, that means you can only use gear, items, anything that you've either crafted yourself or found yourself out in the open world.
Mhm.
Because the second you open up player trading, the second you open up auction house, you're basically just deleting out like 50% of the content in the world.
Mhm.
Because then you're just inner entrepreneur and inner human who's trying to work smart, not hard, just tries to player trade everything.
Mhm.
And there's so many things that become inefficient, unviable, and you disregard it fully. But as we've gone along and played with solo self found, we've a lot of people start to say it almost feels like the world was meant to be experienced in this way.
Mm.
Like there's the little things they put on the ground, like a sweet barrel, a barrel of sweet nectar on the ground over here, or a vendor who sells a green item over here,
Mhm.
or the idea that you can fish up leathers, you can fish up engineering items and parts of deep engineering crafts. You can fish up rocket fuel, you can fish up mithril tubes, all this stuff. It's crazy, and it's almost just unfolded so perfectly and naturally. It's one of those few times I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. 90% of ideas never really amount to anything, and they just kind of fall
Mhm.
flat. But this is just one of those beautiful few times that everything about it just makes sense. Even the marketing of it, just in the sense of everybody's kind of required to stream and record primarily for accountability, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost like you have CCTV camera watching every character,
Mhm.
but secondarily, because you're required to stream and record, you get all this juicy content, death clips,
Yes. It
highlights,
builds it.
and everybody's streaming. So more people are just learning about the community extremely rapidly. It snowballs. It's actually more than a snowball. It's like an avalanche,
Yeah.
and it's been growing
Wow.
just insanely. And you get this whole sense of community. Honestly, Twitch is the best thing I ever thinking about it more and more. It's almost like this
It
day
changes
job
everything
infrastructure.
about
Yeah.
gaming. Everything. It's crazy. That's
And
so
that, you
cool
know,
though. Like this has really picked up steam, and people love this. I mean, what you said about the solo self-found, the thing that really pings in my brain is the maxim that restriction breeds creativity. I
mhm,
think that's really true, and this is a great application of that principle.
absolutely. And I mean, I just I love the classic world that you feel like you're not this big mover and shaker, and that you're interacting with all the
Oh
main characters that
yeah,
much. You know, like you're just this pleb. You're a
you're
dude with a
just some
stick, a
Zug Zug.
shovel. Yeah,
Like,
you found a shovel in a cave, and now you're slapping stuff with a shovel, and you know, you just I like the feeling of when you make a hunter. Hunter's my favorite class. You know, you spawn in the world as a hunter. All you have is like a dirty, rusty hatchet and like
uh,
a shitty little bow, and you have to go tame a pet, and just you're starting from nothing. It feels like, which I really like, and then you layer all this other stuff on top of it. It makes it for a really immersive experience. And if you think about it, man, imagine a server where everybody you saw on the server truly had one life. They weren't role playing or pretending they had one life. They truly had one life. And if you saw level 60 there, and you're like, wow, this guy has never died. It just would be really, cool to see. And all I'm saying is like these type of challenges have been around for a minute too. But the
yeah,
reason why I
yeah.
think we're really successful now is the technology that we have. We have Discord, we have Twitch, we have all these pieces that actually give, for the first time, the community the ability to police itself, the ability to come up with rules and enforce them to some degree, and you know, just we now have these tools. It's exciting. I hope that more challenges will spring up like this, and instead of viewing the world as a theme park, as and I know one of your guests said it as a theme park before. Most people who have played tons of MMOs, I have not personally played that many MMOs, would say
Yeah.
WoW is a theme park. For me, because I have no experience, not that much experience with other MMOs, to me it's very sandboxy. I like how you have this beautiful world, these vendor
Hmm.
items, all these cool things, and you can make your own rule sets and challenges within this and treat it like a sandbox. And all the issues that people have with classic world buffs, what are the other main issues? PvP system is broken,
Yeah.
raids are too easy.
Yeah.
Sure, only if you're taking everything at face value. But if you treat it like a sandbox and you go, okay, here's just a big blank canvas. Here's a blank canvas. We can do what we want and make this as challenging as we want with this blank canvas. Okay, so of course the bosses will fall over, right? Of course, getting to rank 14 is a big grind, but you can make your own custom rule sets and treat it like a sandbox. And the world is beautiful. The
Hmm.
music is beautiful. The art is beautiful.
Hmm.
Just the craftsmanship that went into the quest, the items. It's a beautiful world, and there's infinite possibilities. If you're gonna look at it from that perspective, as opposed to just trying to like min max, exploit. Because the thing that turned me off most about the meta of classic WoW, and totally just it pulled the plug in my brain. And I know
Mm.
that this isn't a huge problem with it, because it's probably only 1-2% of people who do it, maybe like 3-4%, is the multi-boxing for me, man. The multi-boxing,
Huh.
and I did it myself on launch, but multi-boxing, as I've said on stream, I'll say it again, is the most pay to win thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's
Mhm.
actually shocking to me that it's allowed. And it's always been allowed in World of Warcraft. But I think in 2020, more than ever, now people have all this technology
It's
and
easier to pull
bandwidth
off.
and power.
Yeah.
You can pull it off. And in the context of classic WoW, it's pay to win in the most literal possible sense. It's like if you could have 5 clones in real life right now, and they could all work jobs and give you money, and the goal is to like accumulate as much money or clout as another person in real life. That would be so OP. It would be actually completely unfair. So if there's Joe Schmo
That's
trying to
pretty
have a
bad.
fun, immersive time, and you could have rank 14 gear. Here's the thing: you could have rank 14 gear, slave your butt away, grind all these BGs for months, get rank 14, be the big pumper you always dreamed of, purple gear, right?
Yeah.
You could have a
Yeah.
guy with 5 mages in full green leveling gear and just press fire blast on you, and you're dead. Literally dead.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I guess
Literally
when you
dead.
put it that way, I can see it'd be pretty abusive. So, other than easy ganks, how do people abuse multi-boxing? Why is it so
Uh,
degenerate in your mind?
Yeah, you can just go to Winter Spring and one-shot frost giants, like giant
Mm.
elite mobs that would take a raid to kill. You go there with a mage, you press frostbolt with like 10
Uh,
mages, giant dice, you make 400 gold an hour,
well,
500 gold an hour, 600 gold an hour. People are just doing insane. They're soloing UBRS. There's
yeah.
people with a 20, 40-man multi-box, insane stuff like that. I
Oh,
mean, where
that's.
do you draw
Are
the
you
line in the
serious?
sand?
40-man multi-box?
Yeah, there's a guy in Fairlane with like a 40-man multi-box. It's the type of thing where
Oh
it's like,
my
where does it
god.
end? So are you pretty much, does this end when we're all playing StarCraft and this is an RTS and everybody actually has like a like a data center set up like in an off-site remote location, and you're literally commanding an army of 40 characters in game? Where's the line in the sand? So even though that's not a huge issue in terms of how many people actually do it, to me it was such a turnoff that was allowed, that I
Yeah.
felt really bad about doing it
Especially because
myself.
you
And here's the
you were trying to use every tool in the toolbox to get the most out of the experience. You found a tool that you would not use, and that's what
yeah.
made you look at a different direction?
So when I first heard about multiboxing, I had this innocent excitement for it. I was like, "Wow, I have the keys to the Lambo right now. I have the keys to the castle. This is
Uh-huh.
insane." So week one, I leveled up a Warlock to 60 on Scarum. Day nine, we killed Ragnaros. Week two, or like the week 2 or 3, I leveled up a mage right after
Mhm.
and got the 60 like on week 3 or something. I was one of the first people on the server with the second 60. And at that point, I had unlimited inventory space. I had a mage that could portal me around. I was a Soul Link Warlock, and if as soon as I ran out of mana, I would life tap myself down to 10%, polymorph myself because I would slash duel myself on the mage, heal up in 3 4 ticks, be back up to full. Literally nobody could kill me because I have 2 characters. So I'm not a sophisticated multiboxer, but I was okay enough to have the
Mhm.
mage turn face the target in Frostbolt or Poly.
Yeah.
So at that point, like just nobody's killing me 1v1. And after a while, it was cool for like a couple weeks. And then after a couple weeks, I was like, dude, this is kind of scummy. And it made me realize the reason why I'm doing this is I'm trying to get an unfair advantage. But it wasn't really, for me, it was more about I wanted to defend myself against stream snipers. I do think I've thought long and hard about this, why I wanted to do it. It was mainly to deter stream snipers in my own mind because I'm really not trying to like ruin someone's day
Mhm.
and like hurt somebody or make them have a bad time.
Yeah.
But I felt this kind of guilt with multiboxing, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So like hardcore came as a result of a lot of these things. Like you'd be like, oh, you could participate in this sweaty meta where you have to try super hard. You have to the expectation is you're going to multi-box and you're going to be kind of toxic in PvP so that people will leave you alone. To just having this beautiful, wholesome community where all the incentives are aligned for people to have fun. Everybody's rooting each other on, and you just kind of disconnect from all that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you kinda pull the plug on the, uh on the negativity. One of the things that you bragged about, I heard you mention it earlier, is you feel like you've won the lottery with the community that you've attracted to this content. Um, how's that worked out? Do you have a lot of people doing these runs and streaming it? Like, what's the broader scene kind of look like?
Yeah, I mean, dude, we're really lucky. One of the things I love about this classic WoW community, I'm looking right now. We're about to have 7,000 members in the Discord, and
Shit.
it's growing. It's going up and to the right. But um,
Stonks.
one of the things I love about this community is that it's older. It's older. I mean, it's people in our same age bracket, right? And like if you go to any other game or most other games, you're in there feeling like a boomer. There's a bunch of squeakers in there, and they're talking. They're like, "All right, old man," like like and it just. I like how I see somebody out in the open world. And I'm like, "Hey, he's probably like me." I probably probably a little bit
Yeah.
older, and we probably had a similar childhood, cut from the same cloth, like fantasy stuff, Lord of the Rings, all this, and it's a well capitalized, smart, successful group of people who play classic WoW. Let me tell you right now, I've seen doctors, police officers,
Yeah.
people with advanced degrees, people that of all walks of life. Um, and I don't know, I really like that about the community.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, maybe we just got lucky. I'm not sure, but we have very little toxicity within the hardcore scene. People are really, I mean, you get a few crazies here and there, but I've been learning to deal with that more effectively. But
Yeah. I really have resonated with what you just said about how the classic community tends to tilt a little older, in terms
mhm.
of how far along they are in life. I found myself gravitating more towards experiences like that too as the years go by. Like, actually, the gaming buddies who I bounce off of every day are by and large people who are from an old competitive scene for a mod for the first Half Life game where we played
Mhm.
in player organized leagues in the early 2000s. And I ran a clan that played 250 competitive matches over 3 years. When
Oh
I was in
wow.
college back in those days, yeah. And that clan and our friends is like the seed of the community that I kind of
So is Half Life multiplayer? Because I know Half Life spawned Counter Strike, right?
yes, yes. So
So
think of it as like it's like Counter Strike, but it's a different game mode. Team Fortress
okay.
Classic is the name of the mod.
Oh, Team
Um,
Fortress.
yeah, so
I know Team
Team
Fortress.
Fortress 2 was the
Yeah.
sequel to Team Fortress
Mm,
Classic, and Team Fortress Classic was the sequel to the original Quake Team Fortress.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, there's a in a similar vein, like a lot of those people have come back, with the world being on lockdown and everything that we're dealing with, people being stuck indoors. We found each other on Discord and said, "Let's make a league, boys. We'll call it a beer league. We'll have some fun with it." And we're making our own game. Um, and I love player run communities, And part of the reason
Hmm.
I love them so much is obviously my own great experience with that community back in the day, having it come back. Um, but I also think that games have fucked up with regard to community building over the years.
Yeah,
In like a drive to try to grab as many people as possible,
for sure.
like quantity over quality. And
100%.
while quantity has a quality all of its own, um, man, like I've been turned off of so many games that maybe are not strictly MMOs, but have MMO type DNA. Like Warframe is an example, Destiny is an example. There are a few others um, where it feels like you're not really communing with people. Like the people you're playing next to aren't like your brothers and sisters. You know, you're not growing together. You don't get to actually talk to them. They're just like strangers who are walking down the hallway next to you to class. Um, and I hate that. It sucks. And when
Hmm.
Classic was announced, I was like, oh shit, maybe people want this. Maybe there are enough people like me out there want this. And maybe this will send a signal in a way that there is that we're sick of like these shallow social experiences. I made a video about it at one point, but I I've been fascinated to watch all the talk about the upcoming retail expansion,
Hmm.
the Shadowlands, right? Is that what it's called?
Shadowlands, yep,
Shadowlands,
that's it.
and this controversial covenants feature, which I watched. I watched the Kevin Jordan critique of the Ian Hezekiah interview with Preach, and of course Kevin was on your show too.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we have John Stats this Thursday. It's pretty cool. He's
that
another.
is hype. I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
it. What time is that?
11:30 a.m. Pacific. So you're east. No, no, no.
I'm West with you.
You're west. Yeah. So 11:30 a.m.
Yeah,
our time.
you're like me. Every time it is actually East time because for some
Yeah.
reason that's what people. Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I will definitely try to be there for that, and I'll certainly watch the VOD in any case. But this like I've been fascinated to watch Shadowlands. Seem like it's actually trying to learn some things from Classic and seeing the backlash to that and the way that the community is interacting with that. I hope I actually have this. Actually, before I go on any further, I want to give you a chance to jump in. What do you think about that? Do you have an opinion about it?
Yeah. I mean, so ultimately, my opinion with Shadowlands, there's still elements of Warcraft there, so there's stuff to latch onto. But just as a general thing, I think it's gotten too cutesy cutesy. They're trying to appeal to everybody, and just if I were to look at the game at face value and look at all these different wildly colorful, high, RGB value particle effects
Uh huh.
flinging all over the place, 9 million different mounts, Volpera, all these little strange races, like to me, it's overwhelming, and it doesn't look that cool to me. Like personally, I like a more simple, low power level world. So that's kind of some of my issue with Shadowlands. At the end of the day, though, I still think if Classic was never around, like if Classic was never launched, I'd buy Shadowlands and play it, and do some twos and chill with some of
Mm-hmm.
the people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still have friends who play it. There's still stuff to be appreciated in Shadowlands for sure. But one thing, man, and I don't know if it's the age or whatever, but there was a time where people were people were different years ago, man, and like some people were really into mythology and D&D and understand, like, taking pride in all that rich nerdy fandom or lore, and like they were just a different breed, man. I don't even consider myself one of those people, but I like those people, like those people who are just sitting around a table playing D&D
The
using their
graybeards.
imagination. The graybeards, inspired content. They had visions. They were creative. I feel like a lot of those people, some of those old guard, they got together and made Classic WoW, and the passion and love they put into the game is so evident.
Mm-hmm.
That when to chime in on your point and what you said about some of how the new games, a lot of them just feel like they don't have much soul in them. They're
Yeah.
built in a way to try to exploit the player and make a little money off of them,
Make you feel
or
powerful enough to want to pay money or want to. I don't know.
they're not unapologetically designed. They're designed apologizing to you the whole time. They're
Oh,
like,
that's a great
"I'm
way to put
sorry,
it.
I'm sorry, great player. Here you go, great player. I'm so sorry, but let me get some dollars
Yeah.
for the
Oh,
for the
oh, oh.
gems. But
Is that edge a little too sharp for you? Let me just round it off for you.
let me go render.
Is the
Yeah,
leveling
so
too
sorry,
slow?
guys.
I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
Yeah, and then you get, I mean,
Oh
and some
man.
people love that, right? So that's the thing. Like, that's probably the majority. Like Blizzard, there's people who have advanced degrees that work at Blizzard. They make data-driven decisions. They're probably following the needle on the chart, and they're
Right.
like, "Yo, everything's moving mobile. China's a huge market.
Hmm.
We got to make data-driven decisions." A lot of the old guard, they retired. They've moved on to other things. I'm not sure, but there's still a few of us out here that like the way games were, back in the day, where stuff was. And even when I look at stuff, and this is a hot take, man, I might, lose
Ooh.
everybody by saying this, but with Game of Thrones, for example, right? Most people, probably 90% of people, love Game of Thrones.
Uh-huh.
But for me, like I always loved Lord of the Rings, Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
And even though I never played D&D, I just look at the cover of a D&D book and it gets me so excited. And when I see Game of Thrones, it's almost like fantasy light, fantasy for the normal folks who don't really know much about fantasy.
Yeah. It's a very low
I,
fantasy setting. Yeah.
yeah, because it's very over sexualized and graphic and stuff. And I know it comes from books, and the books might be way better. I'm not sure. I've never read the books, but I gave it a shot in good faith with my wife, and I was watching it, and I just keep thinking to myself, man, like this is fantasy for like people who aren't normally into fantasy, so it's like really watered down and stuff, like the way they structured the show.
Yeah.
So for me, I couldn't watch it that much, right? Like
Mm.
when you look at Lord of the
The
Rings and you
aesthetic
look
just
at the
didn't grab you.
didn't grab me. And the same thing can be said with a lot of these modern games. You go back and watch Fellowship of the Ring. Watch the first 30 minutes again sometime, bro. It'll remind you why you love all this stuff. It'll
Yeah.
remind you. They have it for free on planes most of the time. So every time I'm on a plane, I'll watch the first 30 minutes. Like
Dude,
basically, I'll end
Fellowship
it
is
right.
badass.
It's badass. That one scene where they're in the Elven city and like Aragorn's like, oh, you have my sword, and then Legolas like, oh, you have my bow, and Gimli's like, you have my axe,
My
and the
axe.
whole sequence from the Shire leading up to the hobbits running away, and they go into that dark tavern, and Aragorn's all hooded, and it's like rainy and damp.
Hmm.
You think that stuff is hypersexualized? No, man. It's actually just very like rich. These grungy hobbits walking into this grungy
Hmm.
tavern, and like there is elements of romance and things like that too with Aragorn and his elven woman, but it
Hmm.
was just kind of done in a better, like higher brow way. And you just look at a lot of these new games, man, and they just look kind of corny to me, man. I don't know, like I miss
Hmm.
that rich Lord of the Rings Tolkien, high fantasy Tolkien type lore. And I think like games like Witcher, I love The Witcher. I don't know how you feel about The Witcher, but The Witcher is a serious fantasy universe that's based on books, and
Hmm.
they don't compromise. They're unapologetic about their universe. It seems. I saw something that was kind of a big yikes the other day, though, that they're going to be building a mobile game for Witcher.
Yeah.
So for me, I had this red flag go off in my head. I don't know much about it, but I was thinking to myself, oh boy, oh boy, here it comes, dude. They're cashing out. They're cashing out. CD Project Red, they might be cashing out right now. They're making some mobile adaptation for The Witcher. When you look at The Witcher 3, beautiful game, serious voice acting, AAA voice acting, um, serious fan. Look at the
Hmm.
cinematics for The Witcher, and
Yeah,
even like
Witcher is an
Diablo.
incredible game. It's the best storytelling in the coolest setting that I've experienced in a video game. Um, and very different than a lot of RPGs where it's telling the story of a character. Like you aren't playing your own character; you're playing this character that the game presents to you, and it's telling you that story. It seems like you're just generally though powerfully drawn to certain types of aesthetics, like
Yes, 100%. Yep.
and it I can see that you put a lot of effort into tailoring your content to look the way that like even I think part of the reason hardcore maybe appeals to you is not just on the gameplay level, but also on an aesthetic level. The
100%. I'm a sucker
idea,
for art assets.
yeah, and I love the Diablo orbs you have and the hardcore angel you have as your
Hmm.
logo. It's so cool looking.
Hmm.
Um,
Thanks, man. Thanks. I mean, I tried. I literally adjusted the contrast and brightness settings to make World of Warcraft cast in a darker light. I know it's not canon or maybe how it's
yeah.
supposed to be, but for me, I like to think that WoW's make it look a little bit darker. But basically, the trend in my mind is everything has gotten really cutesy cutesy, and I think it's maybe to appeal to little kids. I don't know, man, but I remember being a little kid. I
Yeah.
remember being 13. I liked the savagery of the orcs and Lord of the Rings and like the bloody fights at Helm's Deep and the Magic the Gathering cards back in the day. If you ever played Magic, like they had this serious kind of macabre, edgy, dark, gritty art style.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was ever, and then you look at the retail, everything is so cutesy cutesy these days. I don't know, man. Just that's another thing. So I don't know who exactly they're
Mhm.
making the art style. Like who exactly is that appealing to? I'm not even sure, but it's got to be for somebody. But
Yeah, probably. I mean, if there is like an audience they're targeting, it's just the biggest one possible, I'm guessing. And in order to do that, you have to have the most options possible. Um, it seems like I've observed, like in games in general, just a trend towards brighter, flashier, more colorful people
Hmm.
tend to be drawn to it like, like flies to a light. They just can't help it.
Here's the
And
thing I want to chime in on that though,
yeah.
just real quick. So a world like Diablo is supposed to be very dark and gritty and dim, like an overcast. You just think of grays and dark dungeons, right?
Hmm.
But when I look at Diablo art style, I ask myself, how can something so dark be so rich and colorful? So it is dark, but they still find shades of red and orange glow and ambient effects and particle effects to still make it look super rich and nice.
Hmm.
Just, so while it is dark, I mean, I've watched the cinematic hype trailer for Diablo 4 like multiple
Right.
times on stream now, and look, I mean, I just love it.
It's
Like just the
fucked.
loading screen of Diablo 4. If
Yeah.
you look at it, where you see the barbarian and the other classes there, that loading screen is so comfy to me. I could just sit in that loading screen and spin the characters all day. Everything looks
Mm.
so nice to me.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was it, man. Just to say that just because it's dark, you can still make it look beautiful and colorful, even though it's dark.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I'm definitely not conflating dark with ugly or with bland or boring. I mean, I think there's a very long legacy of dark fantasy art going all the way back to Dungeons and Dragons, Magic, all that old shit. The old tales told by the graybeards, right? And I like it too. I think, but for me, like what's most important about a game is that the aesthetic makes sense. So
mhm,
the thing about going with a dark aesthetic for a hardcore game mode is it makes sense.
mhm,
Like the what you present tells the story of the game. And I think that especially in MMOs and games like this where there's a huge cosmetic component, um, there's an uh, an irresistible incentive for most publishers to give players as many options to pay in as they can for cosmetics. And if you have a really strict adherence to a certain aesthetic, you just
mhm,
can lose some people. A good
100%.
good example, like a game that I love, close to my heart, very small game called Planetside 2. It's an MMO first person shooter. It's very unique. And when it launched, it had a very specific aesthetic. It was like a sci-fi shooter. Over the years, they put in more cosmetics. You can have pink camouflage. You can have hearts come out of your guns when you shoot them, and it's just like over time that goes away. There was a
Mhm,
big controversy that happened right when the game came out, where um, the art director said that he couldn't put berets in the game for a certain faction because it didn't fit their art style,
mhm.
and the community thought that was ridiculous. Um, he's not at the company anymore. I think not related to that, and they've moved on, and now the art is just all over the place. Another game too with the same kind of artistic identity crisis is Guild Wars 2, uh,
Mm.
which that was what I talked to Mighty Teapot about a few weeks ago. You referenced it. That game has altogether, in some ways different, in some ways not different problems, but it also massively sells cosmetics as a way
Mhm.
to make money and monetize its player base. And to the point where any aesthetic gains you can make inside the game are completely meaningless.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. This is the cycle, guys. How do we break the cycle? You have this rich, cohesive, tightly woven fantasy universe, and then over time, as it grows and gets more popular and swells, it loses its identity. Its art style goes all over the place, and I don't. I think it's maybe the corporatism of it. It gets really corporate, and you get more stakeholders involved, and then maybe there's some turning point where the initial people who are super inspired to build this universe lose leverage because then it becomes a stakeholder issue. I'm not sure, but the same
Numbers
thing can be said about
driven.
like Halo for me. Example, like I grew up loving Halo, man. Like I was on the Bungie.net site every day, like eating every Easter egg up or every breadcrumb they would put out about the lore. I learned about the Covenant,
Hmm.
about you know Earth and Reach, and just the fall of Reach. And I read all the books, the Flood, First Contact. I loved it, man. Like the even Halo One, that scene, that
Yeah.
legendary scene where they first see the Flood on that mission, and you get this little fire team of Marines moving inside of this compound, and they meet the flood and they get overwhelmed and they all die. Like I love that, dude. It was so scary and rich and real, and I was so into Halo. And then you see what happens with it over time. They eventually Bungie doesn't hold IP anymore.
Yep.
So how do you break the cycle with this? How do you stop stuff from getting diluted? Somehow there are some beacons of light who have not done it. So one of them is Lord of the Rings. They've kept their stuff pretty airtight. I don't think anybody has really, diluted
What'd you think of the
or
Hobbit
messed.
trilogy?
Okay, yeah, okay, I see where you're going with this. Like the new Hobbit was different, for sure. But I don't know. I still feel that Lord of the Rings holds its integrity. Um,
Aesthetically, it was consistent. There's that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Also, Warhammer, like I feel like they've been pretty serious and streamlined and consistent with it, right? Another one would be, I think, probably more or less Magic the Gathering, but Magic the Gathering's all over the place now too with the
It's
different
too big.
dimensions
Yeah.
and yeah, um,
I'm not qualified enough to speak about that. I
yeah.
tried to get into
There's
Magic at one point, man. I really thought about it, but the hobby's too big.
So how do you stop your stuff from getting diluted to the point of no return, where like the world doesn't make sense anymore? Maybe you just put it down. Maybe like if you feel like it's getting to that point, you just say it's over, game over. If you're the creator of this world, you say that's it. I know people would want to see it continue,
Hmm.
but it's my baby. It's our prized world and universe and lore that we've worked so hard to build, and we don't want to see it degenerate. So we're calling it. It's done.
Hmm.
You know, maybe that's what it takes, to preserve the integrity of stuff. Most people want to see stuff keep going to a season 3, season 4, season 5. Oh, I love this show. I love
More
this
of what I
character. Bring
love.
him
Just
back
give
from
me
the
more.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, resurrect him, dude. He's a great character. Just bring him back from the dead. Fuck it,
Mm.
right? And then you go to season 8, season 9, season 10, season 11, and then it just it's nothing at that point,
Loses
right?
its soul.
Maybe it just takes strong leadership to go. It's done. It's a mini series, only 10 episodes. I would have loved to see Band of Brothers season 2. I love Band of Brothers, one of my favorite miniseries of all time, HBO miniseries. Tracking the whole, involvement of
It's an
the
incredible series.
paratroopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the paratroopers in World War II. I would have killed to see a season 2, but would have season of 2 hit as hard? There's something
Yeah.
beautiful about 10,
Yeah.
10 episodes. That's it. That's all you get. That's all. Like, to preserve the quality over quantity, all we got is 10 episodes in us, and that is just going to be immortalized
Hmm.
as its own block of art. And then you have the Pacific as well. So you know,
Yeah. I feel like we live in a world though where no successful IP goes unmined, right?
yep,
Your
yep.
example with the Witcher mobile game, like even if it's a great mobile game, it could be, but still, like Witcher on mobile seems like a really weird fit tonally.
It
Um,
does. It does. It does. It does feel weird, and I don't know. Maybe there's a communication piece missing too. Like, maybe if they're the leadership of WoW or Witcher, what if they reached out and said, like, "Look, community, you really love this Witcher universe. This is where we're at with regard to preserving the integrity of the lore.
mhm.
We're doing this mobile game because we feel it's going to be a serious addition to the universe. We're just want to let you know we're making every effort to preserve the integrity of the lore and all this as much as possible." Um, I'm not sure, man, but like.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing. So about like decentralization. Like, I like decentralization. Most people equate that with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain. I like blockchain. I like decentralization. I'm not like humongous into crypto or anything, but I've thought about the idea of like a decentralized IP where the people would control the decisions in the universe. You might end up with a bad product at the end of the day if purely the player base, guided it. And this is what
I
I
don't
mean.
think
Like,
Kevin
imagine if
Jordan would like that very much.
exactly, yeah, because Kevin Jordan on that podcast said there needs to be this distance between the passionate, inspired, creative people and the
Mhm.
player base.
Mhm.
I would agree on that too. That's one way to build the car as well. But look how that's panned out. Now we're in a situation
Yeah.
where there still are a few people pulling the strings, but they have no clue why this universe was made, and have like they're all over the place with both the
Yeah,
lore
too
and they're
much
just trying to.
distance, it seems like, between the people who make the choices and people who are experiencing those choices.
For sure. So, if there was a way where everybody who played the game and was involved with the system inside of this intellectual property could vote and democratically make decisions to the universe so that it would move in a certain direction, at least, I mean, you may end up with a bad product at the end of the day because
Mhm.
the player base may not always know best, but maybe you would just take a few missteps as a player base guiding the community and go, okay, that was a bad decision. Let's do another poll and move it back or something.
Mhm.
If I'm in a community of my peers with all my World of Warcraft players who love the game or whatever, and they want to make a decision and move something one way, and they democratically voted on it and it moved that way,
Mhm.
I'll be cool with it. At least I would understand. I don't
Mhm.
know, but maybe the decentralized wouldn't work. All I'm
Yeah.
saying is I wish there was a way to not have this cycle continue where
Yeah.
like these beloved treasured IPs that people invest their life into emotionally, financially, they just degenerate over time. I don't know.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking about your idea about the decentralization. I actually have a bit of a devil's advocate kind of notion building in my head, but before I get there, just like a hypothetical to kind of test the idea out. Like, what if you had like, say you implemented this for the hardcore community, or you and the people
Yep.
who are kind of helping manage it and organize it, and let's say that the community came back and voted and said, we've decided the decentralized hardcore community has decided that the auction house is in.
I would say good. Let's go. Auction house, sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. See that's the thing. That's actually how we're doing the hardcore community right now. It is like that. I think there should be due process, and there should be a way to make changes as a community. We do straw polls, which is in a sense kind of like decentralized. We do this weekly podcast where we talk about the issues and pain points,
Uh huh.
and then we bring it to the community and we straw poll them, and we tell them, hey, look, even though we're sort of in a sense top of the chain of command with this stuff, we can't just make decisions like
You're
off.
facilitating the choices. You're
Yeah, we're
gathering the
just facilitating.
feedback. You're implementing it. Yeah.
Exactly. We're just the facilitators. Like, who are we to make the decisions? We're no better than you, community. So we're going to put
Hmm.
this in your hands. You're going to vote. And if you guys feel overwhelmingly that another way is better, we're 100%. It's no problem. We'll absolutely go that way, right? And then maybe at some point we'll realize, hey, that was a mistake, and we can always go back, scale it back, whatever it might be. Um, but that is kind of how we're going right now with
Mm-hmm.
hardcore,
Mm-hmm.
like, because it would be super cringe if we just said, all right, there's a new rule, just came up with it, blah blah blah, like everybody just
Mm-hmm.
go obey by that. People would
Yeah.
just lose interest and they'd walk away. They'd be like, who is this guy? Like, I don't know.
Sure.
So
Yeah. That makes sense. You actually kind of foiled my very clever plan. I think that the point that I was wanting to examine, and get your thought about is like, what if a community like that came together and gave feedback that essentially asked for something that was not good for the game, and is that not in fact what has happened to a game like World of Warcraft retail over time? I think of something
yeah,
like LFR. I was playing when LFR was introduced. You were playing when LFR was introduced. I don't remember a lot of people being very upset about it. In fact, I remember a lot more people being very up on it.
I was up on it when it first came out too. Yeah, to be honest,
Yeah, we just and that's one of those choices where it seems like the community at large doesn't know best. And that's certainly an argument I've heard. Like, I've consumed a lot of Kevin Jordan's content lately, so it's kind of ringing around my head. I love the idea of a democratic process, but I also think back to that, and I think back to like what made the original WoW Vanilla so strong, and I think about the importance of those the those vision holders, the vision holders who kind of have the, I don't know if it's the freedom or the power or the ability to go and make what's in their head. And even though you are getting feedback every single week and iterating and iterating and iterating, like I still kind of feel like you are one of the people who has that guiding vision. And
well,
I would be
here's your.
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad, dude. Just
No,
finish your
I'm
thought.
just connecting things and seeing what you think.
So here's one way you could possibly do it.
Uh-huh.
Some creative, inspired, passionate people come together and they take a blank canvas and they draw an amazing thing on it. At some point, those people have to be very selfless about it and go, I'm trying to create something that's bigger than just me and just you. And at some point, I have to relinquish control of this out so that becomes decentralized or whatever. So maybe, those people like Kevin Jordan, those inspired people, who made this beautiful world, they build it up and it's such a beautiful thing, and like, they carried the torch and got it to a certain point.
Hmm.
And then when they couldn't go any further, or maybe it could be a number of circumstances happen, they would turn it into like this. They would open up the IP. They would relinquish control of the IP and give it to the people, and let the people, and just say, this is a universe that's bigger than any one person. It's bigger than myself.
Hmm.
Let's open it up. Now, yes, you're 100% right. I actually think that's a really interesting thing to say, how that might have been how retail evolved. Like, they just listened to the people. People
Hmm.
wanted flying mounts. They wanted this and that. And we got to where we are. But the thing that retail is missing right now is there's no due process that's transparent and open for the people to move things back if they wanted to. It's
Hmm.
just left to the high council of Blizzard executives or whatever, right? So imagine we got to this point where we are with retail right now in Shadowlands, and we go, okay, there's some stuff wrong potentially. Let's keep polling the community, and maybe we can scale it back in future iterations of the game. Maybe we can bring it back. Like we as a player base can vote on this, and we've learned from remember back in the day when we all voted for LFG, and now we've
Hmm.
learned through history. It
Or
didn't work
flying
out
mounts everywhere.
exactly how we thought, but we have the ability democratically, as a player base to all cast our votes and move the needle back in a better direction. And right now, I think that's one of the main pain points with Blizzard. They don't really communicate all that well. And when they do, and this is shocking to me a lot of the times too, because back in the day, and Kevin Jordan mentioned this on his when he was on our podcast, it was like Blizzard had better things to be doing, bigger fish to fry back in the day. To get a
Yeah.
hold of Blizzard back in the day, you couldn't really get a hold of Blizzard. Now you can tweet at them and you'll get a response. They'll spawn a freaking dragon for you in the starting zone or whatever they did during the during the initial thing, right? And like
Hmm.
the all the developers are one tweet away
Yeah, the
now,
trend
and
is
but
more and more access.
more and more access. But um, I guess shit. Where I was going is that oh yeah. So the communication from Blizzard recently has been very prideful and full and filled with ego. You've seen CMs, community managers, kind of lash out, right,
Mm.
and not take the high road. You've seen it multiple times. I still love Blizzard, and most people are like doomers about Blizzard. Like they've just the trust has been
The
severed from Blizzard. They'll
decline of
never go
Blizzard.
back.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's all those videos about that. Blizzard will always have a place in my heart because they made the best games that put a roof over my head that helped launch all my YouTube stuff. You
Yeah.
always got to I always got to pay respect to them in that sense. So I'm not even just trying to defame them or anything, but they have when you see them, like I was at BlizzCon last year for the first time, and when
Cool.
the Jay Allen bracket was up there and he was
Yeah.
apologizing for all this stuff.
Oh man, what a
To
moment.
me, I don't know, man. Just I feel like Blizzard isn't communicating honestly and transparently like just real neckbeard gamers like the rest of us, man. And it's got to be maybe some of the lawyers talking or the corporate aspect of it. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I guess to circle back what I was originally saying is that yes, what you said might be right. They listen to the players, and this is where we are right now with WoW. But right now, there's no way to take it back and move it back towards.
Hmm.
I mean, some people say they're doing it with Shadowlands, but I
Right.
don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we we can expect a new WoW expansion. Hey, what's the name of your dog, by the way?
Oh, sorry, my dog's 8. I have 2 of them. There's probably some cats outside.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Uh, I don't know. Like I asked myself, I was thinking about this problem too. If I were in charge of WoW retail or one of the people who was, and I recognized that we had fucked up and we tried to make a game for everybody, and in doing so, we made a game for nobody. And I wanted to start moving the needle back into zeroing back in on the audience that I knew would love World of Warcraft. How would I go about doing that, knowing that I'd built all so much expectation of access into the game? Just the stuff we've mentioned is already huge. LFR, flying mounts, those are two pillars that by themselves are huge and hard to roll back. Um, and I asked myself, what would I do to pave the path? And the answer I can come up with is it's got to be like, and one flagstone, one brick, one piece of granite at a time. And the part of me that sees patterns looks at covenants. And I don't know a lot. I don't know everything about how they work. I'm really not that plugged into retail. Like I said, I haven't actually played retail in over 10 years. But what I've learned about it and what I've seen about it in terms of discussion makes me think that they're trying to bring the RPG back into the game and trying to make you make a choice. A choice that when you make it, you might not have all the information, which feels like choosing a class, which feels like choosing a race, and you can't easily change it at any time. Um, and it's pulling the game into more of that RPG space of not I want to be able to make the most optimal output choice to get the highest raid parses to be the most competitive, but I want to make the choice that's feels most like the character that I want to play. You know, I want to be that cozy hunter starting out with my axe and rusty bow, and this is what feels right coming out of Duratar or wherever. That's kind of what I feel like I'm seeing, and I don't know if that will actually pan out. Um, do you think I have any Do you think that there's any sauce in that idea, or you think I'm totally off base?
I don't know much about retail, and it's the type of thing that I just look at it and it's too bloated and it's too colorful and it's too the cinematics.
The aesthetic
I
is an
sometimes I
immediate
think
turn off.
they're just gonna like Jane is gonna bust out into song and it's gonna turn into like Frozen. That's how I feel when I
That
see the
would be the next
cinematics
direction to go, is the Fortnite direction, right?
the Fortnite direction, man. So it's the type of thing that if I in a
Shit.
selfish world, just purge it, man. Just purge all of it, bro.
Burn
Like
it
be on
down.
like I know I'm saying like in the sense that make an unapologetic decision that's going to piss people off and own it and be like, yo, we're passionate. This is for the best. Like, we need to do something shocking as Blizzard to show that, like, we're back. We're
Mhm.
back. And, if you keep trying to please everybody and keep their powerful characters going on over and over again, eventually they're just going to start one shotting planets like they did in some of the cinematics. I would have loved to see at one point Blizzard to just go, I know you're attached to your characters, guys, but we're just going to wipe it. We're just wiping it
Yeah.
up. Like, just come back fresh. Like, maybe they like. So for me, like, if you see a bloated website that has a bunch of features on it, like even just look at maybe a Wowhead. I'm not trying to fire any shots here, but try to think of like a website that has just too much stuff going around all over the place, and it has, they have all these cool ideas for features and aspects of the site, but once you just pile it on top of each other, it just becomes like a big steamy, like
Yeah.
just unrecognizable bloated
Its purpose
website.
is not clear.
Its purpose is not clear, and a lot of like the richness and flavor and simplicity and genius of the design goes out the window because you just keep adding stuff to the pile. Oh, what do you think about this? That'd be cool. All right, just add it on top of the pile. Add it on
Mhm.
top of the pile. um if in a selfish alternate reality, I would, if I'm Blizzard, I say, you hire Kevin Jordan back, you hire some of the old guard back, and they go, we're wiping it, guys. We're wiping it. Wow, and we're just gonna re-release World of Warcraft. We are going to re-release World of Warcraft. That's just what it's
Mhm.
going to be called, World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And instead of reinventing the wheel, they still take the same treasured and beloved zones and they just enrich them further. And I'm talking about different game mechanics fundamentally. Maybe there's no global cooldown anymore.
Mhm.
Maybe it's in VR someday they do it. But to just say,
There's
because a
precedent
lot
for
of the
this.
is there really?
Yeah, like Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2. Do you know about how that went down?
No, I do not.
Okay, so Guild Wars 2 is a game anyone can play now. It's free to play. Awesome game. Has big problems, but before Guild Wars 2 was a solution to a problem for Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1 came out, actually it was a concurrent of like WoW Vanilla and WoW Burning Crusade. It was out around that same time. And very much was a different, it was like a pseudo MMO in many ways. I won't get into it, but they got to a point with, after the third expansion to the game, where they realized that they developed themselves into a corner in terms of design, and that maintaining what they created was going to be really difficult, and iterating on it meaningfully was going to be really difficult, and they just couldn't keep it going. So rather than changing the game, or rather than just trying to make this disgusting husk from a developmental perspective continue on, they said, you know what? We're going to make a new expansion that's going to introduce 3 new races to the game. And you're going to be able to play those in the sequel to Guild Wars called Guild Wars 2.
Hmm.
And you're going to be able to not carry your characters over, because there's going to be a 250-year time skip between the games. Same
Hmm.
world, different time, different enemies. And in between, if you link your accounts in Guild Wars 1, the achievements that you fulfill in the last expansion contribute to a Hall of Monuments in Guild Wars 1. And that Hall of Monuments
Hmm.
is reflected by things you can unlock for your characters in Guild Wars 2. So you can wear certain titles, like there's this really coveted title for the full Hall of Monuments unlock, where if you do it in Guild Wars 2, you get the title God Walking Among Mere Mortals.
Wow. Okay.
You
So
know?
it's almost, instead of making an expansion, you just make another game. Like that's how they justified
Yeah.
it. It's Guild Wars 2, not Guild Wars 1. What do you mean? You're not taking the characters over to Guild Wars
Yeah.
2. This is another game.
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch
Hmm.
of other differences between WoW and Guild Wars 1, of course, but that's how that was done. And I mean, I think it worked. I mean, some would argue that Guild Wars 2 needs to do that now. um,
Interesting.
but
Yeah, I mean, in all intents and purposes, I know people are going to freak out. People have invested so much of their time and money into the characters, and I get it. You don't want to take away their characters from them, but there's something. Some of the majesty of Vanilla WoW was that the world was really it felt unapologetic. It felt like Blizzard could care less about your sensibilities or how you felt about the world or your characters. It was there. You either liked it or you didn't like it.
mhm,
There is no having your cake and eat it too in vanilla. Like, you know, you just, so that unapologetic kind of badass game design was right there. You know, and so the other way thing I was going to say though is
Mhm.
if you wanted to bring it back, um, I don't think realistically they're going to wipe the slate clean. Maybe in 20 years if they release WoW or something. But one thing you could do is I think old school RuneScape has the system where they make changes to the game based on like 80-20. Like 80% of the community has to feel a certain way for them to act on making the change. There's like a critical
Hmm.
mass benchmark of like,
Talk
okay,
about
if over
democratizing it. Mhm.
democratizing it. Absolutely, man. Like if you had transparency into the democratic process and how decisions were passed through in terms of this beloved game world that you've invested so much time in, I don't know. I mean, I would at least be a lot more understanding of how things ended up. It would feel like the players
Yeah.
were making the choices. So that'd
Yeah.
be another thing that they could do. And maybe honestly, I'm talking all this smack about retail and stuff. If the player base was all voting and I was able to see, hey, look, I'm in the 20% that doesn't like these changes. Oh, okay, it makes sense. Like the game is going to go in that direction. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe it's not a them problem. It's a me problem. I just don't like, you
Mhm.
know, the way the majority of people are feeling about things. Like, what if most people really like the cutesy furry art style, all this type of stuff? Then who am I, dude? I'm just some old crusty boomer over here saying that I don't like it. Yeah, it makes sense. Like I'm just
Mhm. Mhm. They move
I'm
on.
yeah.
Yeah, well, talking about the idea of moving on, I mean, you posed the question of how can a game or any IP that starts off as a beloved thing not lose its soul over time?
Hmm.
You observed something that I've observed as well, not just in the games that I play, but honestly in my own work. I'm a tech professional. I've worked at startups, and I've seen the cycle of these amazing small companies be so successful that they get bought up by large companies and they lose their soul. And when that happens, it's a sad thing because the thing that nourished you literally, well, not literally, I guess, indirectly, but the thing that felt so meaningful and so right and like it was making a change and a difference and like you were building towards something with this group of people gets turned into like uh a rounding error for a big company, and you get brought in this big corporate structure and instead of being incentivized for doing the right thing, you get incentivized for playing the system, gaming the system. It feels bad. Um, and people who are making building those companies, and selling those companies usually leave when they sell. They go to make a new company. I think this happens too in the video game world with developers, people who make these beautiful, amazing games. Like definitely some people are just, studio forevers folks. Like this they want to be either in one place or they like the career progression. But like I look at the original creators of like WoW Vanilla, and I don't know all their resumes, but these guys moved on, and I think that
Hmm.
there's a creative freedom in that because you can be chained to something you've built that's beautiful. Um, like think about the most successful artists, of modern media, like the George Lucases or some of those other type things. If Or another great example is when you brought up about TV shows, about wanting just to print out new seasons of the same kind of stuff. I think about some of my favorite bands from when around the time WoW Vanilla came out, like almost 20 years ago. And I remember I would be so bummed whenever my favorite band put out a new album that was like had a different feel to it.
Hmm.
That just it wasn't they'd obviously creatively moved on. At the time, I didn't understand. I'm like, well, why would they change something that was so good that I love so much? They have so many fans for. They change because they're humans and they're creative and they have to progress. They have to develop. They have to go on and do the next thing. And the avenue for taking the thing that's so good and just making it go last forever is to give it to a company and have them do it. But then they don't have that strong vision, that that unique whatever it was that made the thing go in the first place. Um, it's totally logical.
Yeah, you actually stirring up an interesting thought. I don't know if I thought of before. Maybe I'm looking at this all wrong, man. Maybe you don't view things in the sense of it's going to last forever and always be a good thing. Maybe you just snapshot when things were great and you cling to that and celebrate that as a standalone piece of art, and it doesn't things it's just par for the course. It's human nature. It's going to degenerate over time. And that's kind of what classic WoW is in a sense. You know, we just snapshotted the version of the game that
Hmm.
was the most inspired. That was and I'm so happy that it's actually officially preserved now with this,
Yeah.
the system we have. So
I imagine one of your concerns too is that depending on how they handle the Burning Crusade Classic rollout, they might corrupt this leveling experience that you love so much. Like that might be gone.
yeah, I mean, the other half of the other thing, the other half of it too is that us as players, we've changed a lot too, man. So even if you had the most inspired, passionate people behind the reins at Blizzard or whatever they're trying to make, a lot of us, in 2020, I mean, a lot of us aren't the greatest, man. Like we're pretty entitled, we instant gratification. A lot of us are selfish and self-absorbed and self-consumed and all this. We got to look inwards in some of this, and somehow I don't know what it's going to take, but maybe all this pandemic stuff will make some of us humble out a little bit. But I look back to previous generations. People were more eloquent. People were more substantial. Like when you even saw politicians or anyone get up in front of a group of people, they would speak with such finesse and such grace. They just sounded different, accent wise, and everything too. And I don't know, man. I mean, maybe it's just one of those things where you're getting older. This
Mm.
has happened with every generation. But I look at some of the modern music coming out too and stuff, right? And I miss
Yeah, I
I
get it.
don't envy Blizzard having to make some of these decisions, man, because you can't. It's almost like we're insatiable. We can't be
Right.
pleased, a lot of us at the same time. You know.
Yeah, I think that there's a very strong temptation to look at the change coming in with younger generations and see it as a problem. Um, eh, but I have a very different philosophy on it, and I'll share it with you.
Mhm.
And tell me what you think. I don't think people have changed. I think the things that people deal with has. Um, my youngest sibling grew up with a cell phone in her pocket from the moment she was a
Mhm.
teenager. I didn't get a smartphone until after I left college. That fundamentally changed my upbringing compared to hers.
Mhm.
Um, when I first started playing online video games, it was on a dial-up modem. That was fundamentally different. Think about pre-Twitch versus post-Twitch, and this is just for video games. There are eras when, if you wanted to play a game, it meant old consoles or even arcades. But even if you make it even broader, look back to a time when rock and roll music was the evil kind of new thing coming in culturally, and you go back, you can see people lamenting the days when people would read, reading, not watching TV or listening to the radio is actually the elevated thing. Oh no, radio's bad. You got to go back to reading. Oh no, you got to go back to town
Mhm.
meetings. There's no end to that level of like like devaluation of I'm not sure what the way to put that is, but it's a trend, it's a phenomenon that I've observed, and the only thing that makes sense to me is to posit that people haven't changed. What we deal with has,
I would say
and
there's one factor. Oh, sorry. Finish your thought
no,
though.
no, no
I have something racing through my
I'll
mind right
I'll,
now.
I'll I'll round this out just a sec. And that it's a very fine distinction to understand when you see something from someone or from a company or from a group of people, whether it's a manifestation of who those people are or something that those people are dealing with.
Mhm.
Um, that's my thought. Jump in.
So I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do think more or less, our humanity, our human nature, has been consistent since the dawn of time. I remember in college in freshman year we read that Epic of Gilgamesh book. It was like the first book ever written on Sanskrit tablets in the ancient Mesopotamian desert. And you're talking about this guy, and he's still worried about women and clout and money and all this, right? Like back in
Hmm.
Tigris Euphrates time. So
Gotta hustle.
100%. But the one thing I would say, which was I think is a game changer, that is different from anything else we've ever experienced ever, and it's probably like the biggest game changer for humanity in general is the internet, man. The internet,
Yeah.
it's almost like
The beginning of
BC
history.
AC. Yeah, I mean, because nobody lived long enough to have any thought worth thinking about up until the internet. Now we have this
Unless you were like the
collective,
most significant prolific thinker of your time. But
and
now,
then maybe, but still, like now we have this way to rapidly disseminate information and learn anything. But with that internet, there's going to become growing pains with it. Like there's going to be this sensory overload of information. There's going to be this anonymity and this outlet to be like really cruel to each other potentially, because you have this anonymity of the internet. There's no accountability through the anonymity of the internet and all this. And just the idea, like a lot of people, because a lot of us, and this is kind of far removed from video game talk, but a lot of us have lived pretty solid privileged lives. We haven't had massive world wars or anything like that too. So a lot of us are kind of disconnected to death and suffering and,
yeah,
and hardship. So like it's easy to take stuff for granted,
yeah.
right? If it's
How
easy to
food
take stuff
arrives
for
to your table, even like,
disconnected with our food supply chains, all this,
mhm.
right? It's easy to take stuff for granted. um, and with that comes a lot of implications, right? Like you kind of feel, you see this all the time. You go to Instagram right now, right? Just the people just taking the pictures of themselves of their pretty faces, thinking, oh man, thinking it's high quality content. I mean, there's all this stuff going on, man. But the internet, I guess my point is the internet is a big game changer.
Yeah.
Like the implications are vast and far reaching. They affect everything. And
Mhm. And because of that, man, I just have sympathy for people who are fucking it up. I don't think that we were evolved to use the internet. And it doesn't mean the internet shouldn't be here. It just means that it's going to take us a while to figure out what the hell to do with it.
mm-hmm.
Growing pains, brother.
Growing pains for sure.
And I not only at our level as but like I was talking to the lead game designer of Planetside 2 like last month or something. It was like 6 weeks ago, and we had a very frank conversation saying he didn't think anyone really knew how to make a live service as a video game. Like there's no template. Like it's not like making a platformer where there are successful platformers you can kind of riff off of. Like it's a new world. And in the world of creative works and creative art, things end. And ends can be a good thing. Like what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying about TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
But the ending of live service games and MMOs is a very weird thing. Sometimes I think that from an outsider perspective, something like a WoW retail keeps going because it doesn't know how to do anything else other than keep going.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, man. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. There's no other option. People are interested. There's money to be made.
Hmm.
Keep it going. At all. Yeah.
And if it gets far enough away from what's good, it will eventually go away anyway.
Well, here's the other thing too. I almost think, because I look at the retail streamers, people that are playing Shadowlands, a lot of them look like they're just having genuine fun. They're not really thinking about it too seriously. They're not
Hmm.
like even aware of all this rich history of World of Warcraft and the evolution of how it came from classic WoW to where it is today. They're playing the game. It's pretty fun. They logged on. They have their class.
Hmm.
So like the meta will eventually just shift, and maybe the sensibilities of people will just shift with the tides, and people will just love that new style of gameplay. And then we're just all ate up boomers, man. We don't even know
Hmm.
what we're talking about anymore. I don't know.
I'm definitely a gaming boomer, self-admitted. I turned 37 this month, and man, I feel a little silly talking about video games sometimes, but it's also my passion. I can't get away from it. Like,
Yeah.
can't dodge it.
No, it's legit, man. I mean, what else can you be doing, right? Like, there's some great stuff you can be doing, healing people, being in medicine and stuff like that. But video games are legit. Brings people together.
Hmm. That's one of the things that fascinates me most about it is like the opportunity to have discussions like these. The almost sometimes like yeah, gaming is fun. It's great. You need it. Like it helps me relax. Helps my mind rest, which I really need because my life is so busy, as I'm sure yours is, and a lot of other folks. Um, but I like treating gaming like a platform sometimes, a platform for community building, for like if I need help, like figuring out how to deal with a plumbing issue, the first people I usually ask are people in my Discord, like my buddies who I bounce off of every day. I'll go to Google, sure, I'll go to YouTube like everyone else does, but I feel like in a lot of ways, my gaming buddies have like replaced the kind of the kind of friends you have as a kid, or
100%, man.
like the idea of like a small human tribe almost. It feels
Here's the thing you have to ask yourself,
important.
man. Are you able to be more real and genuine and empathetic and understanding and a better version of yourself online in the context of Discord and video games, or in real life? In real life, you have all these things. You have time crunches, you have time hacks you have to meet. There's money involved. There's finite resources, and oftentimes you're just kind of making do, you're around other people in real life, and you're just kind of hanging in there. And you're like, yeah,
Mhm,
I fucking can't wait to get back home, or whatever. Like, it's cool hanging out with these people, but I gotta feed my dogs. I gotta
mhm,
get my
mhm,
oil changed tomorrow. And at least for me, it's something, I don't know if it's a sad realization or not, but I feel like I'm able to connect in a more earnest way,
mhm.
through Discord and gaming.
In a
And you
less
have this,
distracted way, like,
you're in a better
you can bring your
wavelength to
best self.
connect. Yeah, you're in a more chilled out, relaxed wavelength, because there's all these other factors that are like stopping you
Mhm,
from being yourself in real life. And some people, I mean, it might be an upbringing type of thing. Some people might be just super comfortable in their own skin. Because I
mhm.
feel like if you're extremely comfortable in your own skin, IRL, maybe you can just be very relaxed and real
I don't
in
think there
real
are that many of
life.
those people.
Yeah.
People who look the most comfortable in their own skin, I think, are maybe some of the least, actually.
Yeah. I mean, because they're trying super hard, right, to look like super perfect and all this.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
yeah, there might be some other underlying
I like
issues. But
your point, though, about, like, being able to be more real with people. I definitely have seen that too. Actually, I have a sometimes I worry that, like, it feels so good and accessible and honestly real a lot of the time. Um, but I also think that there's the thing that makes my gaming buddies different from other people I connect with online is that we go through something together. We experience like some kind of adversity together. We overcome something together. You know,
mm,
we beat that. We beat that team. This actually literally happened. We beat Clan Zero Tolerance back in 2005. And those guys were assholes, and we kicked their asses. Screw those guys. Like
yeah,
we that brought us together, um, and that's different than like someone I exchange homework tips with, or just someone that you bump into when you're out questing or whatever. But like again, I'm comparing video games to video games, but I think that there's experience is intrinsic to connection with people, and gaming is a valid way to make have those connections. If you appreciate if you approach them with with integrity and um, with some empathy for
hmm,
people, because there are limitations to the ways you can talk to people. The thing
it's
I
true.
worry about is like, am I doing it a little bit too much? Like my whole life work from home, and I do this as my after hours thing. And I even did this before the lockdown. This is the life I kind of made for myself. Um, is it different when I'm chatting up the person who's serving me coffee? Is it different when I ask my buddy to help me move something with his truck? Like, is that experience different than helping power level and alt?
I mean, like I said, you got to ask yourself that question. That person who's serving me coffee, I'm going to be a worse version of myself interfacing with them. I'm going to be friendly to them and be like, hey, have a
Well,
nice
it's
day. Have a great.
pre-caffeination, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True. That too, right? But sorry about my dogs.
It's
But
all
I
good,
mean,
man.
when you're out in just regular, normal society, at least for me too. I mean, I'm always thinking that people I've lived in kind of rough areas for the past 10 years. I'm thinking people are trying to out to get you, sort of like I'm looking over my shoulder. Somebody's out to try to
Yeah,
rob me or extort me or do whatever. So I have my guard up when I'm out in the
word,
world. I'm always have my guard up, man. I'm always
because you
looking
could
around,
lose it.
trying to have
Yeah,
yeah, trying to have a head on a swivel, because I know that there are bad people out there that will do bad things to you if given the opportunity, and you have to like not even give them that opportunity and have your head on a swivel, have high situational awareness, be careful with who you trust. All these things, like the sum total of all these factors, make it so that when I interface with people, it's kind of guarded and it's not that real and authentic. And for me, like I just like I see myself more in the people I meet playing these games than I do
oh,
my local barista. I mean, they're good people. We're just cut from different cloths a lot of the time. When I
mhm,
interface with some dude in Elwyn Forest, and and we hop into a dungeon together.
Your guard's a little bit more down. You can be a bit more
Yeah,
honest about who you are, where you're at.
I'm in my house. I'm not
Mhm.
in outside and feeling like I'm exposed or whatever. I don't know. So
Yeah.
it's there's
It's
all
one of
different
the things
types of
that makes
realities you can live in.
this world of Warcraft and the other worlds totally unique from ways you can connect. And
Yeah,
it's quite a thing, dude. It ain't like anything else that's ever come before it. And to your point earlier about like how Twitch has really up leveled that Discord, like what you can do with this is only getting more and more interesting. And as a force of creation and connection, gaming is never going to be any smaller of a deal than it is now, man. It's just going to get
it's
bigger and
true.
bigger.
That's the exciting thing. And you're asking, is it worth it? Is it a good path that we're on? And one thing that gives me comfort, it might give you a little comfort too, is that, I don't have kids right now. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you never know, man. It could just be GG, well played at any given point. But the fact that we're doing what we're doing, it makes me feel like we're at least getting ourselves out there and putting it
Mm.
out there so that future generations, for whatever reason, if they found it interesting to go see what a couple of neckbeards thought about a video game at a certain X, Y, or Z time, like we would live on through our content or whatever it's called, right? So
Leaving your mark.
your spirit is like captured and like immortalized in some way. Even if nobody
Mhm.
ever looks at it, it gives me a little bit of comfort thinking about it that way. A lot of people find
Interesting.
comfort in having kids for that because they just think, okay, once I leave, my kids will still be around. So that's that's one thing that's cool. We may look back on this content 20 years from now and cringe, but hey, at least it's out there and we got to
Can't
see
let that
ourselves
stop
back in
you.
the day.
I know I'm gonna cringe whenever I look at something I did more than a year ago. It's always like, oh god.
Same, bro. So
You make a really interesting point that I had not thought of before. Giving a mark, and especially what that balance looks like compared to like having a kid, the traditional evolved way of leaving a mark. Um, what are we turning into, man? It's a different world.
mhm. Yeah, it's a different world, man, for sure. It's
Yeah.
crazy times. We're living history right now with everything going on. See what
Mhm.
happens. But hey, man, I mean, with this shelter in place, coronavirus pandemic, a lot of us WoW players and MMO, like we're professional
Your
social
time to
distancers, right?
shine.
Yeah, I mean, we've been it's not we've been social distancing for years and years, so it comes a little easier. Like there's some people I know who are like very extroverted. Every day they're out happy hour, having beers, going out, like
Mhm.
meeting people. Every weekend they have some new wedding or event to go to. Like that's just their baseline. I can't even imagine how they're feeling. That's why I think mental health is going to be a big issue in right now
Mhm.
and in the coming times because some people are getting all screwy, having to stay inside,
Mhm.
not travel, do all this. But hey, I feel pretty much fine, man.
Yeah. Speaking of mental health, there's this other streamer out there, a guy who's a Harvard trained psychiatrist named Dr. Alok Kanoja, Dr. K.
Oh
Healthy
yeah, I
Gamer
saw some.
GG. Have you heard of his stuff?
Yeah, I saw his stuff he's talking
It
about.
is so good. I feel
Yeah.
like I've learned so much just from watching it. I'm like, where was he? Oh, hold on. My monitor is flashing at me. Anyway, you can still see me, right?
Yeah, sorry.
All
I
right.
see you.
So where was Dr. K like 15 years ago when I fucking needed that guy? That's
Yeah.
what I want to know.
Yep.
I guess better
Yeah, I
late
mean
than
he's
never. But I'm really happy that it feels like the world of gaming is becoming, in a lot of ways, what I always knew it could be when I was just a young idiot playing WoW vanilla. And it felt like I was maybe wasting my time, but at the same time, it felt like there was something real there. Do you get that sense too?
yeah. I mean I'm curious your thoughts on this. Gaming is becoming more mainstream. More and more people are getting into it.
Yeah.
Um, even back when I was in middle school, like there wasn't really many girls that would play games, and it was like it would be like an insane thing if a girl played a game.
Yeah.
Like I have nothing against females. Obviously, I'm a married man or whatever, but this is the thing. I just think about like gaming is really mainstream now. Like everybody's playing games now. So a part of me misses that when it was a little bit more underground, and the people who were into games were a little bit more nerdier. They weren't as like hot and sexy and beautiful and well adjusted and well traveled and all this type of stuff. Like I kind of just even
Yeah.
back in high school, middle school, like some
When
of
it
my
was your
friends,
thing. Yeah.
I gravitated more towards like the underdog type of kids
Word.
in
Word.
middle school and high school, and even myself. I played sports and stuff, but I necessarily wouldn't want to hang out with all the kids who were playing sports. I saw my friend Chris, sitting at the lunch table with his Rurouni Kenshin anime shirt on. He was all scraggly and
Uh huh.
looking kind of weird, but like I gravitated towards them because I like you know that type of stuff, and they
That's one
got
of the
me into that
totems
together.
of like the nerd, the gamer is like, you know, unkempt hair and don't put a lot of effort
Exactly.
into your appearance. Like that's kind of the uniform. Or at least it was.
Exactly.
It was.
And even my parents, back in the day were like, "Oh, I don't know about those kids. You're hanging out with these kids. They're into like, they're not the most typically successful kids and super, absolute
Mm,
chads like out there, you know, wearing the nicest clothes and dating the hottest girls and all. But that was kind of cool, where the playing Halo 2 back then and some of those old games. That vibe with gaming, I missed that a bit. But now it's
mhm,
becoming more mainstream. It's probably
mhm.
a good thing, more money and brands and sponsors and everything
Yeah.
getting involved. But
I don't know. What I think about that, is that what you're curious about?
yeah, I mean,
It sounds like you
yeah,
were starting to ask a question.
yeah, it's just sort of how do you feel about? I guess there's not really anything. Like,
No,
do
it's
you miss
interesting.
that
Like,
spirit of gaming back then? Like, do you miss that
oh hell yeah.
those
I'm always
vibes?
trying to recapture it. I'm
Yeah.
always trying to recapture it. That's kind of why I called my podcast Basementside Chats. Like the idea
Mm.
of just being a nerdy kid in in your basement, unfinished basement, TV in the corner, having a friend over, and loading up some Mario Kart or whatever. Um, looking up tips on the on your dial up internet. For me, it's what it was for me. Um,
That's one thing I kind of like about Asmongold too. And like, yeah, I don't
mhm.
really spend much time talking about him, but yeah, I don't know if you follow him or if you've seen him. I'm sure
Yeah.
you
Oh,
have,
how
but
could you not?
he's probably like a multimillionaire, right? He makes so much money and has all like 40K people. He's got a nation worth of people watching him, but my man still is living in the attic. It looks like, and he's got like chip bags everywhere, and he's driving
Money
like a
don't change
beater.
Asmon.
Yeah, he's
Hell
driving like a
no.
beater car. Like you could see that guy pull up in a Giorgio Armani suit with his like, faux hawk and his,
That would
four models on each arm. And he's living in like some penthouse overlooking the,
the day
the
Asmongold sells out, goes corporate. Shit, you don't want to see it. No one wants to see
yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
I wonder if he chafes against that, because he certainly has the means.
yeah,
The image he presents is that he's very comfortable with that and would hate to have it any other way. Um, looking at that, that's seems to be the case. I don't know what that is. I think the temptation when watching Asmon is to kind of believe the character that he presents of himself a little bit, and that
mm.
like he really is just this,
He's
insufferable,
got to be. He
unsavable
lives there, right?
neckbeard. Huh?
He lives there, right? Like he's got to be. It can't be like an actor, right? Like, or do you think it is like he just walks up
Is
on the?
Asmon Golden act? Oh
I
man,
don't know. I don't
that
know
would
him
be a
well
hot
enough,
take.
bro.
I I don't know. Like he's been in front of the internet for from over 10 years, and it's always been that same room.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
it
that's what
looks
yeah.
real, dude. It convinces me. I think that's his appeal. Is he's convinced everyone.
He
He's
walks
like,
downstairs and he's like got like a kombucha like juice dispenser and like it's like in a
mhm.
beautiful like modern space shuttle
It's like the
looking
one room
like
in his house. It's his. It's not his room. It's his set.
yeah, that's hilarious, man.
He
That's
walks out of there like into like a pressurized airlock and showers
that's what
off
I'm
and like
right. Decontaminates him. Somebody
has like
hands him a
an
friggin'
attendant that
kale
deals with.
milkshake. Yeah.
Oh man,
Uh,
that would be the fucking day. No,
yeah,
I think it's real with him. But
yeah, I think so too.
if he tried to do something like that and people found out about it, it would torpedo his credibility. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
a guy
I
like
think he's legit.
Aspen has a huge burden of not changing. I think, kind of like what we went back to with not being able to creatively move on because people love you for what you have already been. I wonder if he feels that way. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to pick the brain of somebody who's at that level. You must learn a lot of interesting things when you have a small nation watching you. When you press go live on your webcam
It's a
or
different
on
world.
your
You have a
Streamlabs.
you have a pretty big crowd yourself, though, man.
Getting there, man. It's starting to get there. You never know, though. You never know. I mean, I I'm worried though at the same time, because in 2020 when you put yourself out there and you're streaming, you're putting yourself out there. I mean, there's horror stories and people getting doxxed and this and that. And I
Hmm.
know I'll probably have to face that at some point. And you can't please them all, and all it takes is a few people to piss in the Kool Aid for nobody to want to drink the Kool Aid anymore or whatever. Like there's these concerns, but I feel like I have some strong friends, man, they've crossed that line in the sand for me, where they're no longer just gaming buddies. Like they're my real life buddies now.
Word.
Like I trust these people. I
Yeah.
talk with them every day. I know they're going to go to bat for me. I'm going to go to bat for them. And I find like tremendous comfort and solace knowing that I have a strong team. Like, and people know I have a strong team. And that's a feeling of connection that is hard. It's hard to get in real life because, like you alluded to before, the way in my twisted way, the way I view real life is that you grow up elementary, middle, high school with people. People branch out, they go to college. You lose like 50% of friends there. Then you keep in touch at college. You know some people there. You meet some people at
Yep.
college.
Yep.
Ultimately, college resolves. People go off on their careers.
Hmm.
They get married. Ultimately, people end up with their own little different separate tribes. They move all over the country and
Yeah,
and
all
the
these
planet.
forks in the road.
All these forks in the road that you end up kind of alone at some point. Like
Yeah.
you lose that. It's
And
just
the
never the
expectation is
same.
that if you're successful, you end up alone, or at least alone in a family unit.
For sure. So like I have friends that we're still friends. There's nothing wrong with our friendships, but they're living in one lives in Portugal, one lives in
Hmm.
Japan, one
Mm.
got married to a succubus and now lives in Boston, and like and you don't really
Good for
talk to
him.
them as much. I'm an only child, right? So I used to be extremely close with my friends from high school. We went to boarding school together. We
Yeah.
played rap together and played all these things together. Try as you might to keep the friendships alive, if you're countries apart and states apart, you grow apart, man. And a lot of times people end up losing those commonalities, those common interests with those people that you met in college and high school. You actually grow apart, and
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with this is that I feel like I mean there was times in my life where I was acknowledging that and going, man, that just really feels bad that that's happening. But the gaming and WoW and making content and doing podcasts like this, you know, you're able to get that back again. You're able to develop those. You get like a round two this time. Develop new friendships. But everybody's kind of more stable now. They have their houses. They're all set up. So
Hmm.
I don't know what the future holds, but
Yeah.
I
And the
find
base.
it really rewarding building a community and doing this online content creation thing. More rewarding than anything I've done in my life.
Amen, brother. Couldn't have put it any better. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
That's where I'm at.
same here, bro.
It's real.
Same here.
And
Same here. Only child army brat. Got
I'll
some
be
people in
I'll
the
be
chat.
watching out for future mega successful cargos. With your kale shakes and I'm not sure what else what the other signs are going to be, but I'll definitely watch out for that. You know, I'll
I,
keep you in check.
I appreciate it, man. I do want to grow. To be honest, I do want to grow and to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. I think it'd just be fun. Like I'm fine. Like right now, if I could just sustain what I'm doing right now, I'd be happy. Like I'm cool chilling with my dogs, drinking a few beers, playing WoW, doing this. If I could
Hmm.
maintain this forever, I'd be a happy man, and that'd be a great life. And I would. But I would like to grow and keep building it out and to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. So, you know, I, I really like. I'm rooting for underdogs too, man. It makes me so happy hosting new streamers and investing in new streams and getting people, their first get affiliate and getting their first 100 viewers and all this type of stuff. Um,
Feels good, man.
yeah, feels good, man.
Of course you want to grow, um, and like from my perspective, where admittedly I'm not an expert on this. Like I'm not Devin Nash. I don't know, but it seems like you're doing the right thing. I really just gotta reemphasize how cool this game and community you've made for yourself. That is like a level above just being an expert on a game that someone gives to you and playing it the best you can. Like saying, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I'm not just good enough to get the most out of this thing that someone put in front of me, but I'm gonna make my own thing. And that's huge, man. That's forging your own path. Um, I wonder, like, if you like, I watched the paths of some other streamers, like maybe like an S fan or something like that. He did a really great. I saw him explain it once, where actually I think it was on a Healthy Gamer with Dr. K. He talked about how he realized that um he got so big when waiting for WoW Classic to come out that he realized that it wasn't actually the WoW Classic stuff that he wanted to do creatively. It was actually the waiting stuff, the stuff that he did to like all the RL streams and all the other crap, and that's what made that's what really worked for him. It made him tick creatively.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that time, man. The hype waiting rooms waiting for
Yeah,
Classic. I actually called it back then. I swear, I'm not lying. I said, guys, believe it or not, we're gonna be nostalgic for the hype leading up to Classic. Like it's gonna go too quickly. I very rarely I'm gonna pat myself on the back, but for that one, I like. I mean, dude, here's one thing I really am proud of myself for. I actually really do feel like at this point, I live each day and appreciate each day. I'm not saying I do the craziest stuff or do anything that special, but one thing I would encourage my fellow brothers and sisters watching this right now, and I didn't know if this was possible, you can get to a state mentally where you wake up and appreciate each day, like to the almost to the fullest, like 80%
mm,
enjoyment and appreciation of that day on the planet Earth. That's kind of where I'm at, right now. And I guess, you know, I've been on that wavelength for a minute, maybe like a year or two. It hasn't been that long, because there most of my life I've had this void in my mind and in my heart thinking, I'm missing out, I'm missing out. I gotta pump, I gotta go harder, I gotta go. Like I gotta get more success, more this, more that, more this, and that void has kind of gone away from me, man. And I just feel more solace, right? And I just like doing those hype streams leading up to Classic, I was like kind of at peace thinking this is a great time. Just this hype
yeah.
leading up to it. I'm gonna just trying to appreciate the hype while I was building. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Does does what you
just
described?
appreciate each day.
Appreciating each day, man. What
Yep.
you're describing is something that I think I've seen from people who have really been able to shape their own life. And not everyone can do that, and not everyone who can do it does. I think it's kind of rare, actually. Something that I'm trying to do too. Hell, the reason that I stopped coming home from work every day and playing video games and started coming home from work every day and talking about video games is because I wanted to make it. I wanted to make my life look the way that I saw in my head. Like I wanted to fill that void. Doing this is one of those things. Um, I'm in a much earlier spot compared to you in terms of like growth and everything. I don't know where it goes. Like the idea of finding a way to duplicate the living that I make from this kind of thing seems almost impossible.
No, it's
But
possible, man. It's possible. It is possible, man. I was feeling it can go from 0 to 100 pretty quick, man.
yeah,
You just got to be a good person for long enough, and eventually something's gonna hit, man.
yes.
And even just this interview right now, like one thing that I see when I look up the chain of command to the bigger streamers, man.
Mhm.
A lot of these people feel like closed books. A lot of them feel like they're almost not looking like they don't necessarily want you to succeed. They have their. Okay, I'm going to focus less on that and go. I want to be all about collaboration and to collab with smaller streamers and smaller creators. And even if I become like a really big content creator one day or whatever, I never want to give off the vibe or be like seem out of touch, out of reach, inaccessible, whatever, man. Like
Yeah,
and I hope that reflects in the hardcore community and
the
stuff like this
statesman
because
with the open door. Yeah,
the open door and like you could have one viewer and sometimes I'll just be a degenerate and not respond to a message because I'm just a degenerate, but it's not like I'm trying to hate on you or anything like that. Like try to host the smaller streamers and you've seen that. I honestly think there's a power in doing it in collaboration.
mhm,
And you look at the hardcore community and when you truly want the best for other people and you put your best foot forward for other people, you host them and you try to do the best you can for them. Like it's I don't necessarily believe in karma, but it'll pay for itself in other ways. You have a friend, you have another person who's got your back, and now we have this group, this hardcore group, and everybody's hosting each other, people are
yeah,
happy,
yeah.
and it
You're setting an
radiates.
example in a lot of ways, or trying
Yeah,
to.
that's the best thing you can do with your influence if that's
Mhm.
what if you think about it, right? You become an influencer, you get views, you have people watching you. What's the best thing you can do with that influence? Probably find other good people and make sure they come up too.
Mhm.
And and try to make it so smaller people who deserve it, who are good people, get a slice of the cake or a slice of the pie, and building up that way. To me, that's the most rewarding thing you can
Hmm.
do with influence and views. When you host somebody who you know who's a good person, who reminds you of one of your childhood friends,
Yeah.
and you host them, and they get happy, and they get people following them, and then they get affiliate, they get some primes, they get some support, they
Yeah.
feel,
And you
I
grow
love
the
that, dude.
community. People could come closer together. Those bonds form, and those bonds are stronger than the bonds than just naked self-interest.
100%. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. If you're just letting naked self interest drive you and all this, first of all, you're gonna get torn down at some point. People will detect
It's a
it, and
rough
they're gonna
fall.
want. It's a rough fall. If people feel like you're totally self-serving, you're not looking out for other people, they're just gonna let you fall on your face when something bad happens to you. They're
Mhm.
not gonna be looking out for you, right? So, and this is what one thing I said before, man. All growth isn't created equal when it comes to growing. I could become much bigger of a streamer if I just started going crazy stuff, take my shirt off, do insane things, reacting to stuff,
Mhm.
like calling people out and be like, I have a problem with you, and then like posting it on a Reddit thread. You can grow like that,
Yeah.
100%. You can grow up to get a million people watching you or something. Some people choose that kind of route, but I do think the slower, you know, and that type of growth though will come with trolls and people hating on you, right? And then your Twitch chat, your
You reap what you
community will have
sow.
a reap what you sow. If you go a little bit slower, you're all about collaboration. You invest in smaller streams. You grow yourself up that way, and people associate your brand with like the underdogs and wanting to be in the trenches with the underdogs, because that's
Mhm.
how I'm trying to position my brand. I want people, when they think of Cargos, I don't want anyone to think I'm some Twitch cool kid hanging out with the elite Twitch people wearing like Twitch varsity jackets. I want people to think of Cargos and think I'm in the trenches with the 2 viewer, 5 viewer, 10 viewer people, and we're down here, and we're down here, like, and you kind of got, you see what I'm saying? Does that even make sense?
Yes. Yes.
That to
I
me
don't
is very valuable to me.
I'm just being quiet because I don't wanna stomp on it. What you say is very important. It's a quality that, um, I have recognized in the people in the business world I've most respected, is not just the ability to do well for yourself, and not just the ability to even do well by a product or a team or something bigger than yourself, but the ability to, when doing so, lift others up
Hmm.
and try to find the people who are at a at a point along the path that's a little earlier than yours, and give them a little nudge.
100%.
Even just a tip of the cap can be all that people need sometimes. Um,
Because to be honest, man, I know how it feels when that doesn't happen to you. I never really got hosted myself, man. I never really got put on by other people. Sometimes I have too much pride to reach up and to try to ask for like, yo, can you host me? I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not gonna be like, hey man,
mhm.
can you just like host me over here? So it was a slow, painful grind with many failures on my part. I never had any stream assets. I just had to, learn all this. Started from 0 subs, all this. So when I see myself and other people who are just starting the content creation path, it can be so brutal. Like, we make a video, nobody's watching it. You're streaming, nobody's watching it. So just trying to look out for them, and just being able to give them that first little nudge, they'll always remember that, and that's
Mhm.
so rewarding that you can do that for people with your, influence or whatever. So
Do you think that that approach is part of why you have such a great hardcore community?
I think so. I do think so, man. Because, um, yeah, I think so, man. It's hard to explain exactly why, but just keeping
I
that
think
as
you
my
did.
guiding light, keeping that as the guiding light, collaboration, investing in small channels. I
Mhm.
don't want to be associated as some elite Twitch cool kid. Nothing against them. They're just, some people want that. They want the limelight on them, right? They want the limelight
That
on
kind of
them, and they
thing
want to
lives and
see.
dies in a breath, man. It's not a it's a thing that you wish for that's outside yourself, I think. What you're doing, the slow and steady growth, what you just described, it's coming off it's all based on what's within you. You're not you're not, from what I can tell, trying to do things. Let me try to put this in a better way. Much the way that you love the aesthetic of WoW and of Diablo, or maybe
Mhm.
older school WoW and Diablo, and what you try to present, and I commended you on how the way you present the hardcore streams, the aesthetic is in line with the content. These things they go together. I
Hmm.
think a really strong artistic and creative vision, like a video game, is at its best when all the components come together and reinforce each other that way. And
Hmm.
it diminishes it whenever you have components of it that kind of like pluck away at that. Like like say you have a really cutesy art style for a really hardcore brutal game. It's like, okay, like art's okay, I guess, but it's sending you mixed messages.
Hmm.
And there's in the ways that you can take a start of something like this, being on Twitch, being an influencer, and blow up. I mean, there's so many examples of the way people have done it and paths towards quick growth, but staying within a world where everything you do points back at everything else you do, and
Hmm.
it's all part of the same whole. The strength of that, from what I observed outside myself, is that when you bring people in, they're the right people. They're your people. You're their people,
Hmm.
and you might not have the quantity that someone who has blown up with some kind of with peddling drama or playing up a big show, um, but the quality of the community that exists there is probably not as high as it is for one like yours. I really respect it. It's part of what attracted me to you and your content in the first place.
I appreciate it, man. I think some of these people that are big on Twitch, they're kind of lonely at the top. I would guess
Mm,
they would feel lonely at the top, and I've seen it. I've experienced it a little bit. I've met with some of them, and the alliances they make with people up there and stuff are kind of walking on eggshells. It's so easy for them to turn on each other and stuff like that
mhm.
too. And one Reddit thread comes out, and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't even know that dude. I don't know that guy. I don't know that
It's
guy."
amazing how fast people can be canceled.
Yeah, it's true. So it's the type of thing that associate yourself with people you trust, good people.
Hmm.
um, Genuinely try to help them the best you can with no bad intention, right? Just really want the best for people, and it'll come back and help you in certain ways.
Yeah.
And I would like to hope that I can roll with the same group of people into other games. And like if you're talking about a new game that comes out, Cyberpunk comes out, trying to create content for a new game like Cyberpunk just totally by yourself, not knowing anybody in the space, as one streamer who can only stream for a certain amount of hours per day because you have to sleep and stuff.
Hmm.
That's harder to do than if you have a bunch of people that have known each other for years, have gotten each other's back. You can bounce feedback off each other. You go in, you can assess the landscape of like,
Yeah.
oh, here's this new game. What's missing from this game? Let's start a podcast. Let's do this. You stream here, I'll stream here. We'll host each other. Let's do this type of thing, man. I don't
Hmm.
know. I see value in it. Just creating these strong ties early. And even us now. New game comes out, you're covering it, I'm covering it.
Sure.
Shoot you a DM, you shoot me a DM. We're talking about it.
Yeah,
It's
man.
it's good.
Connections. Well, I must have I didn't know how deep this went for you, but I must have sensed it. Because this is right where I'm at too. I'm always I think that there is completely untapped depths to what people can get connection wise using gaming as a platform. And people are attracted to different games. That's fine, but we're all part of like this this worldwide community of gamers in many ways. And so many of those qualities you describe are completely game agnostic. Um, I really admire what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing it right, and I'm gonna keep watching. I'm definitely gonna watch on Thursday when you have John Stats on.
I appreciate it, man.
It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I mean it's all part of the it's all love, man. Whatever
Yeah,
you're trying to do, if I can help you out in your channel and grow and everything, man, I'd be happy to. You're clearly good people, like, and
yeah, I appreciate
that's
that.
that's the best way to do it too, because they're also sometimes we're in our hardcore community a lot of times, and we're all
Hmm.
hosting each other, and people are 99% overwhelmingly positive with each other. If you go to other corners of the internet, other discords, other communities, you'll get some really savage, mean spirited people who are unhappy and stuff. So you got to be careful, right? Too, because there's that out there that exists too. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
It's like you said, you reap what you sow, right? Just be careful with who you're surrounding yourself. If you sense drama, if you sense people trying to, you know, create like sabotage or whatever, just shut it down early. Associate yourself with good people. Don't chase the growth
Chase
too
the
hard
connection.
to the point where you would be perceived as a a shill or a leech or whatever. Just try to be transparent with the internet. Those have been some of the guiding lights for me, and so far it's been okay. Haven't been canceled yet. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, man, you're killing it. This is we've been at this for a couple hours, man. It seems like a really great place to put a pin in it.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Uh, so I'll go ahead and reintroduce myself or outro myself, and you do an outro, and we'll call this good. This has been awesome. Um,
Same, man.
uh, you've really made me think about some stuff in new ways, which is what I always beyond the connection. It's what you hope for in a conversation, and without hopefully not building a new tangent. I've heard it suggested that conversation should be entered into with the idea that all parties in the conversation have something they could potentially learn from each other. If you do
Hmm.
that, if you listen, that's what real conversation is. That's what I feel that's what I try to do. And that's what I feel like happened here. So this has been awesome.
This is good
And
connection, man. I feel
yeah,
like I sense your humanity, and hopefully vice versa. Like I'm another real person out there in the world trying to do something similar to you. Build our communities,
yeah,
build our things. So we're on that same wavelength, man. And you got my full support too, man. If there's anything I can ever
word,
do.
word. All right. Well, let's outro it. So I'll go first, and you can tie it up. So just to remind everyone, I'm Deeg. This is a Basementside Chat. It's a lovely podcast. Bit of a new project. Long form conversation. You can see what it is for just by listening to it. And find me on Twitch at Deeg TV. YouTube is, I think it's Deeg BS or something like that. And my Discord links everywhere. I'm on my Discord every day. Super easy way to get a hold of me or chat with me about any topic. Um, and yeah, that's me. I do these. I try to get them done at least every couple of weeks. I'm gonna try to increase the cadence as time goes on, but we'll see how it goes. Kargoz, man, tell people where they can find you and what's coming up next.
Oh, you can find me at Kargoz Gaming on Twitch. So just twitch.tv/Kargoz Gaming. Also on YouTube, it's Kargoz. That's pretty much it. I stream Classic most days. Um, and we have this hardcore stuff going on. We have a tournament on the 26th. If anybody wants to give it a shot, even if you don't win, there's other prizes too. Just
What's the tournament?
oh, it's a tournament. It's a duo leveling tournament. So just similar to what you did with your friend. Like everybody has one life. You all start at the same time, and the goal is within 8 hours you have to get as much levels and experience as you can.
On the
And if either
26th.
one of you die, the other one has to fall on the sword and seppuku themselves, right? Because it's ride or die together. You both make it together all the way, or you both die.
This sounds really
So
fun.
it's gonna be really fun. There's gonna be casters, a lot of streamers on it, covering it, casting it, and there's prize pool, and there's always like really fun death clips and highlight clips and stuff. So even if you're not like the best player, if you just make a funny clip or
Hmm.
like a hype clip that people latch onto, you can win some money. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Good shit, man. Well, thanks again for taking the time. And yeah, we're out. Thanks everyone. This has been Basement Side
Thanks
Chats.
everybody. Thank you, Braden, man. If you're still here, that was really nice of you to say, man. I saw that, man.
Word.
Appreciate you, man.